baby.
The Queen is back.
What's up, YouTube land, Twitter land, Instagram land, Snapchat, Grindr, Swap, BGC, Jacked, Facebook, Paris, and the lands all across the land. And last but not least, every single one of my bitches. And I'm coming to you loud and in the color from the marvelous Chateau.
Hey!
Hello again. I'm back. And I've got carrot cake. Ooh, look at that. I think when I make this next time, I'm going to make sure the icing goes all the way down. I mean, this still looks gorgeous, but it could look even more gorgeous if I did that. Carrot cake is probably my favourite homemade cake.
I wallow in it all.
What's your favourite cake? Yeah. Last week, uni started up again. Second semester. All systems go. And I thought I would share some of the stuff I'm reading for the semester. I do creative writing, which means I don't have to read anything if I don't want to, which of course I don't comply with. I set myself stuff to read all the time. I'm doing my master's part-time, so basically I do one module a semester. This semester I'm doing a writing fiction course, so there's no set reading for it. Normally they set 1 or 2 novels, but I think maybe because of lockdown and stuff, they've not set any reading material. All we have to do is our critiques. They might promote some like essays online to read maybe. But apart from the actual stories people submit for class, I don't have to read anything. Because I'm on the MA in Manchester, we have the option to do this masterclass with Jeanette Winterson. So I opt to do that. It's only about an hour and a half each week, and she basically gives us a lecture, and I love that because at MA all you basically have is seminars. You don't have lectures anymore, so it feels really nice to just be able to sit back and observe and think for an hour. So for Jeanette's class, it's like a mini module, so you don't have to do any essays or anything. It's just her talking at you. But each week we'll discuss some kind of theories and text and writers and stuff. I thought I would show you some of the stuff I've got to read for her. Little Ed probably wouldn't have thought he'd be rubbing shoulders with the British literary elite. But here I am, zooming with Jeanette Winterson in her Cotswold kitchen. I love Jeanette Winterson, so, it feels nice. There are only actually 2 longer stories that I need to read that I had to order as books. Everything else is online. Next week, we are looking at Invisible Cities by Calvino. What a great title. Marco Polo conjures up cities of magical times for his host, the Chinese ruler, but it gradually becomes clear that he is actually describing one city, Venice. And Jeanette Winterson herself has written a comment for it. The book I would choose as pillow and plate alone on a desert island. I'm not really surprised that Jeanette Winterson likes this book because just from the sound of it, it sounds very much like The Passion and Sex and the Cherry, which are my least favourite Jeanette Winterson novels that I've read. I have hers. What Jeanette Winterson have you read? Oranges Are Not Doing Fruit is one of my fave novels. And she is, I suppose she would be one of my favourite authors. So I might end up doing her on my favourite author series. And then sometime in the semester after that, we need to read The Veldt by Ray Bradbury. It's a science fiction story about like an older couple with children, and in the like technological age they're in, it's getting more difficult to control the kids or something. This is short, so this will be good, I'm sure. And then this week we were doing Hemingway. So I already have this short story collection. I do like Hemingway. He can be quite dry, but writing wise, as a creative writer, there's not really that much more you can ask for than Hemingway to learn from, I suppose. Yeah, we were looking at Hemingway. And that brings me on to the short story collections that I'm going to be setting myself to read for uni. These are just short stories to get like the fires burning. Most of these I'm just reading like 1 a day. So it'll take me a while to get through them all. But by the end of the semester, I'm hoping I'll have read like most of them. First up, Hemingway. I recently got this, Black Venus, one of Angela Carter's lesser known short story collections, I think. I've read The Bloody Chamber, but I've also read Fireworks, and I love that. Excited for this. I've got some short stories from Daphne du Maurier, The Birds. I feel like most of these are going to be quite boring. Gothic-wise, it should be fun to read. Dubliners by James Joyce. What We Talk About When We Talk About Love by Raymond Carver.
An impressive title.
So this is the one from the first American edition, not the one that was re-edited and changed a lot. Next, one of my favourite short story collections, Birds of America by Laurie Moore. Excited to reread this. All these stories are focused about women, and there's repeated imagery about birds. And I love that she, for the most part, I don't know if she's written any novels, but it looks like she sticks to short stories. So I love that she's just a short story writer. No, I'm a short story writer. Novels, poetry, anything else? No, not good enough. Short stories. Yeah, look at this. Ha, 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 ha. This short story collection can be a lot of fun. Next up, The Assassination of Maggie T by Hilary Mantel. I've only read 2 of the stories from this so far, so it will be good to delve into more of them. The first story I read, I remember, was it's like this couple driving down a road at night, and then I think they run over a child. And then the next one is the title story, which is a fictional assassin at the window holding his gun, and he's waiting for Maggie T to come out of the conference. And it is just a perfect story. I just remember the assassin keeps thinking of Margaret Thatcher tottering, and it's like she keeps tottering with her peroxide hair, and it's just so fun. The Siege of London by Henry James. I actually was inspired to read this and get it when I was watching Notting Hill. I was making waffles, watching Notting Hill, and then I was looking up the part where Anna Scott is acting in a Henry James film, and I was like getting my spy on. I paused it at a moment when the guy Hugh Grant plays is looking at the newspaper, and in the newspaper it said Anna Scott is playing one of the main characters in an adaptation of The Siege of London by Henry James. So I was like, I must read The Siege of London now. So yeah, thank you, Notting Hill. Thank you, Waffles. I'm also reading this little edition of Shirley Jackson's The Lottery and Other Stories. I was actually teaching it in a secondary school one day when I was teaching just before schools closed for the first time. I was teaching this in a class and was like, this is actually a really good story. I'd heard of Shirley Jackson before because I've read We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which I adore. Yeah, I love that novel. And I'm actually really loving the story so far. And even though it's tiny, the print isn't actually mega small, so it doesn't feel like you're reading a tiny book. And I'm also reading Grand Union by Zadie Smith. So far, my favourite story is one I've read before, which is Adele Amidst the Corsets. It's about this trans woman called Miss Adele in New York. She's in one of those kind of like gothy emo vintage shops where they do corsets and like women's attire, and she gets misgendered, and it's just, or does she get misgendered? We're not sure. It's brilliant. And the next one is an older short story collection. I think this one originally came out in the 60s, but this one is The Wheel of Love by Joyce Carol Oates. Look at this great author profile of her as well. I love these big American author photos that they seem to do, whereas in Britain, they seem to not have them, or they have like tiny ones. I love that Americans are just attention whores. I've got quite far through this actually, but every story in this is really, really good. So this is just one of her collections, and it's already like at least 400 pages. After that, I've got Muriel Sparks' complete short stories, and her complete short stories are not even 400 pages, like just under 400 pages. I can't believe how prolific she is as a writer. So this is also one of my favourite short story collections. The cover is very dated, but it has a kind of Pizza Hut aesthetic that appeals to me. As with the Joyce Carol Oates, every short story in this is on fire as well. I adore Muriel Spark. Muriel Spark first came to attention when she wrote this short story. It won like a big prize, and she ended up just writing it on some like typewriter paper that she took from a shop down the road or something. And then it won this big prize, and people started taking notice of her. It's really interesting seeing her get to grips with the form, because she already seems like a master of the form, even at the start. Is there a particular short story collection that you like? Tell me, please. I need comments. Now I'm going to talk about some of the poetry that I want to read for this semester. So as with how I'm going to read the short stories, I'll just read a couple of poems a day maybe, and more if I feel like it. So first of all, I'm reading Oils by Stephen Sexton, short pamphlet. Next up, some Lorca, Seeing Things by Seamus Heaney. I think this is my 7th collection of Seamus Heaney's that I have. And this is Letters to a Poet. So it's not his actual letters, but some Rilke. I got this for Christmas from my friend Sue. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, my dear friend.
Next up, Auden selected poems. His poem The Fall of Rome is one of my favourite poems, so I want to read more of him. This is an anthology of poems. There's some Robert Frost, there's some Emily Dickinson, there's some Byron, there's some Wilfred Owen, there's some Philip Sidney, Sir Philip Sidney, R.S. Thomas, which I'm happy with that because I want to read more R.S. Thomas. He writes a lot of poems about sheep.
Do you like it? Little sheep.
So maybe there'll be a sheep poem. Another one is Dear Boy by Emily Berry. This is probably one of my favourite poetry collections as well. This is such a good debut. One of my favourite pamphlets, Their Lunar Language, with one of the most beautiful poetry pamphlet covers ever, I'm sure. Tender Buttons by Gertrude Stein. I first came across Gertrude Stein in a women's experimental fiction course that I did in 3rd year of uni, undergraduate uni. And we looked at some poems from Tender Buttons. I remember one about a vase, liking it, but not understanding it. So I want to give her another go and actually try and understand the stuff if I can. But I also love the title, Tender Buttons. And this I got for Christmas from my parents, Dream Work by Mary Oliver. I actually asked for Wild Geese because that was the one a friend recommended, but they got me this one, but I'm sure this will do. Next up, Rendang by Will Harris. Probably one of the most talked about debuts that came out last year, I think. Some Rilke. The very iconic Life Studies collection by Robert Lowell, which inspired the confessional movement. Andrew Macmillan's second collection, Playtime. Rebecca Perry's pamphlet, Beaches. I've got some Owen Shears, Skirrid Hill. I already like Owen Shears just because he's Welsh. Secondly, he's clearly the Zac Efron of the poetry world. I have climbed the Skirrid Mountain in Wales, so I'm hoping to like this. Ariel by Sylvia Plath. This is probably my favourite poetry collection of all time. I've got Juniper Street by Vona Grork. She taught me last year, so I wanted to read some of her poetry stuff. And then the last one I'm going to show you is some Rimbaud. Those are all the books I'm going to read over the semester. Any of you at uni, if you are, what are you reading for the semester? If you are a literature/writing student, or what are you going to read soon if you're not a student? Or what were some of the books you read when you were at uni? All right, thanks for watching. Bye.